Welcome back, loyal followers of channel. My husband has been in a coma for 6 years. But every night, I find strange underwear. I became suspicious, so I pretended to go on a business trip to another city. When night fell, I slowly climbed up and peeked through the window of our bedroom, and I was shocked by the scene that unfolded before my eyes. Twilight was beginning to spread. The sky behind the large window was painted in hues of violet and crimson, casting the last faint rays of light into the pristine whiteness of the room. I set my designer bag down on the sofa, trying not to make a sound, even though I knew the person lying in the bed likely wouldn't hear anything anyway. For 6 years, this room had always been enveloped in silence and the strong scent of antiseptic, the smell typical of a hospital that had now become the scent of our home. I approached the bed and looked at Lawrence, my husband, lying motionless like a beautiful but lifeless wax statue. His face was still handsome. As always, his eyes were closed, and his chest rose and fell gently to the rhythm of the ventilator. I sat on the edge of the bed, softly stroking the hair that fell over his forehead. A familiar sadness filled my heart. 6 years had passed since a tragic accident took the cheerful and talented husband I once knew, leaving behind an immobile body that needed help with every bite of food and every moment of rest. People who saw me always praised me as a faithful wife. They even called me a saint because I sacrificed my youth to care for a comatose husband. But they didn't know how lonely I was every night, facing these 4 cold walls. I leaned down to kiss his forehead, as was my habit upon returning from work, so he would know his wife was back. But when my nose brushed against the skin of his neck, I suddenly froze. Mixed with the smell of rubbing alcohol and the soft baby soap I used for him, a strange scent assaulted my senses. It was the smell of a strong, seductive fragrance, a type of woody scent with sandalwood and musk, typically found in expensive men's colognes. And even more disturbing, I smelled the faint scent of cold cigarette smoke, that sharp odor that clings to the skin of a man who has just come in from smoking. I suddenly recoiled. My heart was pounding at 1,000 miles an hour. Lawrence had been bedridden for 6 years. It was impossible for him to smoke, and he never used perfume. I tried to calm down. Maybe it was just the smell of the doctor who had come to check on him. But I remembered that his personal physician was Dr. Claire, a woman, and the nurse who occasionally came to change his feeding tube wouldn't use such expensive cologne. A vague suspicion, like a poisonous seed, began to sprout in my mind, sending a shiver down my spine. I tried to shake off the crazy idea. I stood up and went to the bathroom to get some lukewarm water to wipe him down. My job at the company was stressful, but when I got home, I didn't let our housekeeper touch my husband's body. I wanted to care for him myself. It was the only way I could feel still connected to him. After wiping him down and changing his clothes, I took the basin and the basket of dirty laundry to the laundry room downstairs. Martha, our loyal and simple housekeeper who had been with us since Lawrence's accident, was busy cooking clam chowder in the kitchen. I intended to forget the strange smell until I started separating the clothes to put them in the washing machine. In Lawrence's basket, there were usually just adult diapers, some towels, and loose cotton shorts to make caring for him easier. But today, my hand touched a different fabric, smooth, cool, and elastic. I pulled it from the bottom of the basket, and my whole body went rigid. I was holding a pair of maroon designer boxer briefs. A tight, modern style. These were definitely not what I bought for Lawrence. As a bedridden patient who couldn't control his bodily functions, how could he wear underwear this tight and difficult to remove? Trembling, I held the underwear up to look closer, and the harsh truth hit me like a punch to the gut. These boxers had been used. On the front, there was a small stain typical of a man after intimacy. I went cold in the middle of the laundry room, gripping the strange underwear tightly. A chill crawled over my body from the back of my neck to my feet. My husband was a comatose man. He just lay there, motionless. All his functions depended on machines and other people. So where did these boxer briefs, reeking of obscenity, come from? Was there a man entering my house and changing clothes in my husband's room? Or was Martha secretly letting someone in? Thousands of questions swirled in my mind. But my instinct as a woman told me that a terrible secret was hidden in this quiet house. Clutching the strange underwear, I took a deep breath to calm down, trying not to show panic on my face. I hid the boxer briefs in the pocket of a hanging jacket and went into the kitchen where Martha was busy stirring the soup. Martha was over 50. She was a robust woman with a kind face and wrinkles marking the passage of time. She had been working in my house for almost 6 years. From the day I brought Lawrence home from the hospital, she had cared for him like her own son, and I had never heard her complain. Would a simple woman like her dare to do something shady behind my back? I leaned against the kitchen door frame and said in a quiet but probing voice, "Martha, did we have any visitors today? Or maybe a relative of yours came to visit from out of town?" Martha was surprised and turned around, quickly wiping her hands on her apron and smiling warmly. "Oh, Mrs. Isabella, no. You left for work, and I just cleaned and took care of Mr. Lawrence. The gate was closed all day. No one could get in. Besides, my family back in the Midwest is busy with the harvest. They wouldn't dare come all the way here to disturb us." Her gaze was clear, looking at me without a trace of nervousness or avoidance. I knew her character. She had great respect for me and was very honest. Even if I offered her money, she wouldn't dare let another man into a house with CCTV at the main gate. If so, whose boxer briefs were those? And the smell of cologne and cigarettes on my husband's body? A crazy idea entered my mind. Was it possible that Lawrence himself was wearing them? I laughed bitterly, mentally slapping myself for such a useless idea. He was completely paralyzed, had muscle atrophy, and a stack of medical records in the cabinet. How could he sit up and change clothes, let alone engage in intimacy to the point of leaving such traces? But the anxiety, like a venomous snake, continued to crawl through my mind, giving me no peace. I decided not to make a scene just yet. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. The next day, I used my lunch break to drive to an electronics store in a distant mall, far from home and the office, to avoid running into acquaintances. I bought a high-tech micro camera with night vision recording and a direct connection to my cell phone, perfect for hiding in a wall socket. When I got home, while Martha was hanging laundry in the backyard and Dr. Claire hadn't arrived yet, I quickly replaced the socket in a corner of the room. It pointed directly at Lawrence's bed, covering the whole room without anyone knowing, even Lawrence, if by chance he could see. The first 3 days passed in a frustrating silence. Whenever I had a free moment at the office or at 10 o'clock at night, I would open the app on my phone to check. The screen only showed Lawrence lying motionless. Occasionally, Martha would enter to clean and adjust his position, or Dr. Claire would arrive for acupuncture and to massage his muscles. Everything was proceeding according to the routine of the past 6 years. It was so normal that I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe the boxer briefs were just a laundry mistake Martha brought in unintentionally. However, on the fourth night, my patience yielded a discovery that made my hair stand on end. That night, I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in bed until almost 1 a.m. when I picked up my phone to check the camera. The screen clearly showed the darkness of the room under the pale yellow light of the night lamp. Suddenly, the signal flickered violently. Horizontal and vertical lines ran chaotically across the screen. Then, the screen went completely black. Signal lost. I assumed there was a problem with the Wi-Fi at home and quickly switched to 5G, but the situation was the same. This signal loss lasted for exactly 60 minutes. At 3 a.m., the camera screen lit up again, as clear as if nothing had happened. My heart was pounding loudly. I rewound the recording to the exact moment the signal returned. Lawrence was still lying there, the blanket neatly wrapped around his body. But when I zoomed in on the image, goosebumps rose on my skin. Before the signal was lost at 2 a.m., Lawrence's left hand was resting on his stomach, fingers splayed and limp. But when the image returned at 3 a.m., that hand was hanging off the side of the bed, fingers slightly curled as if he had been holding something. A man completely comatose for 6 years. How could he change the position of his own hand in such a short time? This wasn't a ghost or a technical glitch. Someone used a frequency jammer to kill the camera for exactly 1 hour. And in that hour of blindness in my husband's room and mine, things happened that they needed to hide carefully. I looked at the phone screen, at the sleeping and innocent face of the man I once loved more than my own life, and I felt like I was staring into an abyss of lies and betrayal. Dinner that day passed in a heavy atmosphere. Even though the summer rain was pouring outside, the sound of drops on the terrace roof seemed like it wanted to wash away the humidity of the earth. I sat at the head of the table. In front of me was a bowl of hot seafood chowder that Martha had just cooked, but there was a bitter lump in my throat, and I couldn't swallow even a spoonful. I looked at Lawrence lying in bed not far away, and then at Dr. Claire carefully taking his blood pressure. Everything continued normally, just like the thousands of days that had passed to terrifying normality. I took a deep breath, trying to make my expression look natural, and then put down my silverware and broke the silence. I said in a slightly tired and pretending tone, "Martha, Dr. Claire, it looks like I have to go to Chicago tomorrow. There's a project there with a major structural problem. The contractor messed up, and I need to fix it personally. Martha, who was serving dinner, froze. Her old eyes showed concern. So sudden. Mrs. Isabella? How long will you be gone? You've been so thin these past few days. Please don't push yourself too hard at work. If you get sick there, who will take care of you? I was touched by her honest concern, and a feeling of guilt wrapped around me because I had to lie to this loyal woman. I turned to observe Dr. Claire. Unlike Martha's concern, Dr. Claire just slowly adjusted her glasses. The hand holding the stethoscope paused for a moment, and then she looked up at me with a very professional smile. Isabella, don't worry. Go on your trip. Martha and I will handle everything here at the house. Lawrence's condition is very stable. Don't worry too much, or it might affect your health. Our eyes met quickly, a sharp, probing gaze hidden behind her thick lenses. Before, I would have been overwhelmingly grateful to her. But now, her smile only gave me the creeps. At 5 p.m., I pulled my suitcase out the door. It was still drizzling. A strong wind blew through the old maple trees lining the street. I gave Martha a few instructions before hesitantly getting into the Uber waiting for me. As the car moved, I turned around, taking one last glance behind the curtain of rain at the large 3-story house. Deep inside, I wondered if, after this turbulent trip, the place would still be my home. I didn't go to the airport. As I said, I had the driver drop me off at a supermarket about 2 miles away from the house. After leaving my luggage in a locker, I walked back, following a grassy path behind the subdivision. It was completely dark. The garden of our house was wrapped in silent darkness. The only sound was the croaking of frogs after the rain. I slowly moved through the hibiscus bushes and hid in the thick shrubbery, exactly facing the second-floor bedroom window. Mosquitoes and insects started attacking me, leaving itchy bites on my arms and legs. But I bit my lip and endured. I didn't dare move. My body was soaked in the night dew and cold sweat, but my eyes remained fixed on the lit window. At 10 p.m., the light in the room was turned off. The surroundings became tense and quiet. Exactly at 2 a.m., a black sedan stopped in front of the back door, the area usually used for taking out the trash. The car door opened. A woman stepped out with quick and decisive strides. Under the dim light of the street lamp, I recognized Dr. Claire. She didn't ring the doorbell or call on the phone. Instead, she took something from her bag. She pulled out a bunch of keys and inserted one into the lock of the back door with great skill. The sound of the click echoed in the night. The door opened and swallowed her figure. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. I took off my heels, walked barefoot on the wet and cold grass, and slowly approached the house. The old wisteria vine growing on the wall had extended its strong branches up to the second-floor balcony, a spot I had personally tended to provide shade for my husband. Now, that plant became my only ladder, helping me get closer to the truth. I grabbed the rough branches. The sharp thorns scraped my skin, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the fear growing in my chest. I held my breath and slowly climbed up to the balcony. Then I peeked through a small gap between the curtains that weren't fully closed. The dim light of the bedside lamp illuminated the familiar objects in the room, casting eerie shadows. I gripped the cold window frame tightly, holding my breath as I looked inside. It was so quiet I felt like I could hear my own blood pulsing in my veins. On the expensive medical bed where my husband had lain motionless for 6 years, the blanket and pillows were now scattered in a heap. And Lawrence, the man the doctors said had muscle atrophy and permanent total paralysis, was sitting calmly on the edge of the bed. I rubbed my eyes, hoping this was just a hallucination caused by fatigue and stress. But no, the scene before my eyes was cruelly real. Lawrence stood up and stretched his shoulders with satisfaction. The muscles in his body moved freely under his silk pajamas. There was no trace of atrophy or weakness. He walked around the room with firm, decisive steps. He held a glass of red wine that glistened. Occasionally, he brought it to his nose to smell the aroma. Dr. Claire was sitting on the velvet sofa opposite him. She was no longer wearing her white doctor's coat, but a seductive, sheer nightgown. She leaned back while one hand stroked her stomach. Her tender voice penetrated the thin glass of the window to my ears. "Honey, when are you going to end this act of playing dead? I'm so tired. Our baby is starting to kick. Are you going to let our child be born without even being able to call his father Dad?" Dr. Claire's words were like sharp knives piercing directly into my heart, twisting a wound that had never healed. A child. She was pregnant. So, the slight bulge in her belly I had noticed these past few days, which I thought was just weight gain, was actually the result of their illicit affair. Lawrence turned, set the glass down on the table, approached, and hugged Dr. Claire by the shoulders. He bent down to kiss her hair with tenderness. The deep, warm voice I had longed for so much for 6 years was now full of mockery and cruelty. He laughed teasingly. Patience. Love. If we rush, we'll ruin the big plan. That stupid wife hasn't signed the transfer of the land titles for the Aspen project to my name yet. She thinks she's redeeming her guilt, sacrificing for her husband. But in reality, she's raising snakes in her own house, supporting all of us. Every word he uttered was light, but held immense destructive power, destroying all the trust and love I had worked so hard to build. It turned out that in his eyes, I was just a stupid wife, a tool to extract money from, nothing else. I bit my lip until it bled to keep from sobbing. 6 years of my youth, countless sleepless nights cleaning his body, changing his diapers. How many tears and silent sacrifices were rewarded only with such great humiliation and exploitation? I remembered the times I rested my head on his chest, crying and telling him how hard my life was. Surely, in those moments, he opened his eyes in the dark, laughing at my naivety. A wave of nausea rose in my throat. I wanted to vomit everything remaining in my stomach. Dr. Claire scoffed, her tone full of jealousy. I can't stand seeing her touch and hug you every day. I get so angry. And you're so good at enduring it, huh? Lying there like a log while she gropes you for years. Lawrence pinched her nose, laughing seductively. Well, I have to sacrifice to earn the money that supports you and the baby. Come on, let's not talk about that woman anymore. She ruins my mood. Come to the other house. I want to drink a little more tonight. Saying this, Lawrence held Dr. Claire's hand and helped her stand up. They didn't go to the main door or the bathroom. The two traders walked together toward the large built-in wardrobe that covered an entire wall of the room. I narrowed my eyes, following them. My heart was full of questions. Were they going to hide in the closet to do their business? But what happened next was even more terrifying than my worst nightmare. Lawrence reached out his hand and pressed a hidden spot on the lower part of the second shelf of the wardrobe. A dry click was heard, followed by the faint hum of a motor. The entire back section of the wardrobe, where I used to hang his expensive suits, slowly slid aside like a secret door in a detective movie. Behind the wood was not the solid wall separating the two houses, but a vacant space directly connecting to the bedroom of the adjacent townhouse. I grabbed the balcony railing, my legs shaking so hard I almost fell. The house next door was a townhouse from the same development project as mine. But since I moved here 6 years ago, that house had always been closed with a faded for sale sign. I always believed it was vacant and uninhabited. Occasionally, Martha even complained that mice from there were coming into our place. It turned out the walls separating the two houses had been demolished who knows when and perfectly concealed, through the gap of the secret door. I peeked into the interior of the supposedly empty house. It wasn't dusty or damp as I imagined, but the opposite luxuriously decorated with a crystal chandelier, Italian designer sofas, and expensive artwork. That was their true love nest, the place where Lawrence and Dr. Claire lived in luxury with the money from my sweat and tears. Lawrence put his arm around Dr. Claire, and they crossed through the door. Then the door closed again, returning my room to its former silence and coldness. I froze in the middle of the windy balcony. I felt like a puppet controlled by someone for years. It turned out Lawrence wasn't bedridden 24/7. During the day, he played the role of a pitiful, comatose husband for me to care for and serve. At night, when I was tired and asleep or away from home, he slipped through that hole to the house next door to indulge in a lavish life with his mistress. Perhaps while I was working, he was there too, returning to bed just in time for my arrival from the office. This truth was too cruel, too heavy for a woman like me who had always considered family the most important thing. I remembered the freezing winter nights. I didn't dare turn up the heater because it might dry out his skin. I got up 2 or 3 times to cover him, while he was probably lying in a soft bed on the other side of the wall, laughing at my stupidity. The feeling of being betrayed, deceived, and having my dignity trampled upon tightened my chest. I struggled to breathe, as if someone was choking me. I wanted to scream, break in, and destroy that nest of adultery. dragged that pair of traitors into the light. But the little sanity left in me stopped me from doing such madness. I was alone in the middle of the night. How could I face two healthy people full of evil intentions? If I entered now, Lawrence might kill me to silence the witness, or they would deny everything, claiming I was hallucinating. The night wind blew strong, carrying a chill that penetrated to my bones and soaked into my wet body. I steadied myself as I suddenly felt dizzy. I had to grip the balcony railing tightly to keep from falling. I knew I couldn't collapse now. I needed to survive. I needed to stay sane to take back everything that was mine, to make them pay for 6 years of my youth and the millions of dollars born of my hard work. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the raging beat of my heart. My eyes stared at the cold, dividing wall with intense hatred. It took a long time before I gathered enough strength to climb down from the wisteria vine. The sharp thorns scraped my hands, legs, and face. Blood flowed, mixing with rain and salty sweat. But I no longer felt the pain. What was this physical pain compared to the open wound in my soul? I walked unsteadily on the wet grass, trying not to make noise, slipping through the dark garden like a wandering soul. I didn't dare start my car, afraid the engine noise might alert them. I walked with difficulty to the main road and flagged down a late-night taxi to go back to the small hotel I had reserved that afternoon. Sitting in the car, I hugged the thin blanket the kind driver gave me. My teeth were chattering. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror with concern. "Ma'am, are you okay? You look like you just came out of a river. Do you want me to take you to the hospital?" I shook my head quickly, my voice hoarse. "No thanks. Just got caught in the rain a bit. Just the hotel. Please." Arriving at the room, I ran to the bathroom, turned on the hot water to the max, and stood under the shower to wash away the dirt and the feeling of filth clinging to my body. I scrubbed hard until my skin turned red, as if I wanted to peel off the skin that had once been touched by that imposter husband. When I calmed down a bit, I came out wrapped in a towel and sat thoughtfully on the bed. This night was endless. I couldn't even close my eyes. I opened the security camera app on my phone. As expected, the video recording from 2 to 3 a.m. was completely jammed a black screen with dancing horizontal and vertical lines. However, I remembered the moment before I climbed the tree when I saw Lawrence's hand move on the screen. It was 3 days ago. I searched the cloud storage again. Fortunately, that short clip of a few seconds was still intact. It was a moment at 5 a.m. the previous day when the signal briefly returned and the camera turned back on. It recorded Lawrence's left arm slowly lowering, his fingers nimbly bending and stretching to adjust the edge of the blanket. Even though it was a small movement, for a patient diagnosed with total paralysis, it was either an inexplicable medical miracle or solid evidence of fraud. Trembling, I put the clip in a secret folder and made backups in different places. This would be the first bullet I loaded into my gun. But this alone wasn't enough. A short clip couldn't imprison anyone. They could say it was a natural muscle reflex. I needed more. I needed evidence of their illegal relationship, the child in Dr. Claire's womb, and the sophisticated money laundering network they had built. I sat hugging my knees by the window, looking at the city deep in sleep. Outside, the pale yellow light of street lamps illuminated the leaves of the trees, creating strange shapes. I remembered my parents back in the Midwest, farmers with hands full of soil who sold their inherited farm to give me the starting capital for my business, so I could reach where I am today. But instead, I used the money from their sweat and tears to support a group of cruel scammers. Regret and anger mixed, forming an iron determination in my soul. From this moment on, the kind and patient wife named Isabella was dead. What remained was a wounded woman sharpening her claws to protect herself. The next day, instead of going to Chicago as I said, I sat quietly in the hotel room and hired a trustworthy private detective to investigate the mysterious house next door using my vast network in the business world. Within just 4 hours, I received a thick file via email. My hands trembled as I opened each attachment. My heart pounded as if waiting for a death sentence on my own marriage. The result was unexpected, but the brutal truth still made me dizzy. The townhouse wasn't vacant or uninhabited. The registered owner's name was a distant cousin of Dr. Claire, who had died 3 years ago from a serious illness. What was shocking was that even though the owner was dead, the house still had intense activity. The monthly electricity and water bills were sky high, equivalent to the consumption of a family of 4 with the AC on 24/7. I looked at the photo with nausea rising in my throat. Amid piles of trash, mixed with expensive fast food boxes, was a box of the most expensive prenatal supplements imported from Germany. And most disgusting were the wrappers of ultra-thin condoms, Lawrence's favorite. While day and night I changed his diapers, cleaning a body pretending to be immobile. Here on the other side of the wall, he was having sex with his mistress, indulging in despicable pleasure. They built a comfortable love nest right next to my house, making me a stupid dog spinning on a wheel to fund their lavish life. The detective also gave me another crucial piece of information. Dr. Claire wasn't just a personal doctor. She and Lawrence were classmates in medical school. They even had a brief relationship before Lawrence met me. All the scattered pieces of the puzzle suddenly fit into a complete and terrifying picture. There was no coincidence. Everything was a planned script from 6 years ago or more. I closed the laptop and looked out the window at the busy city. But why did my heart feel so cold and alone? I left the hotel and headed to a quiet coffee shop in a less traveled alley to continue my investigation. Using my admin access to the company, I entered the internal accounting system and started analyzing the cash flow over the past 6 years. Before, due to excessive trust in Lawrence and guilt over the accident, I signed every document without a shred of suspicion. I even gave Dr. Claire the authority to manage a charity foundation called the Brain Trauma Patient Assistance Foundation to gain merit for my husband. The number that appeared on the screen froze me. $10 million. That was the total amount I had released over 6 years under the guise of treatment and charity. Invoices for importing special drugs from overseas, state-of-the-art medical equipment, all purchased at exorbitant prices from shell companies. I checked the tax ID numbers of those companies and laughed until I cried upon discovering that they were all ghost companies. The legal representative was none other than a distant relative of Dr. Claire, with no blood relation. It turned out the money from my sweat and tears, the money from the sale of my parents' land in the Midwest, was laundered through this fake charity foundation and then flowed directly into the couple's personal pockets. They used my money to buy the house next door, to buy luxurious furniture, branded items for Dr. Claire, and to raise the bastard child growing in her womb. I remembered the times the doctor arrived with a thick folder, asking me in her sweet voice to sign to import a new drug that would benefit Lawrence. I signed without reading while my mouth was still busy thanking her for her loyalty. I buried my head in the table, covering my face with my hands as hot tears flowed between my fingers. I wasn't crying over the lost money. $10 million is huge, but I could still earn that back. I was crying for my own stupidity and blindness. I loved, sacrificed for, and worshipped a demon wearing sheep's skin. I thought about the nights he lay beside me before slipping away to the other house, listening to my complaints about the hardships of working to earn money for his treatment. What was he thinking, Lawrence? Did he feel any pity, or was he just silently calculating how much more he could squeeze out of me? While I was consumed with rage, my cell phone suddenly rang. The screen showed my mother-in-law. I took a deep breath to calm down before answering. On the other line, Dolores's voice was shrill and demanding. Isabella, what kind of business trip is that? Leaving your husband to someone else? Dr. Claire just called me to say, Lawrence needs a new dialysis filter. The best one from Germany, costing $15,000. Transfer it now so the doctor can order it. Don't delay. Dolores never asked if I was tired, how my work was. The only thing that came out of her mouth was money for her son's treatment. Before, I would have rushed to transfer it. But now, hearing her voice, I felt nauseous. I answered in a cold tone. Mom, I have a cash flow problem. Besides, the old filter was just changed last month. Dolores screamed, You're skimping on your own husband. You're the reason he ended up like that. Now, you want to let him die? You're a bad wife, a jinx. Those familiar curses were like a rusty key that suddenly unlocked the door to memories of the accident 6 years ago. A memory I tried to bury deep. Our wedding anniversary. I was driving. Lawrence was in the passenger seat. We were on a secluded road in the Cascade Mountains. I clearly remember driving carefully at a low speed. Suddenly, Lawrence shouted as if panicked. Watch out. Then he leaned over, grabbed the steering wheel, and yanked it toward the cliff. In that moment, I thought he saw an obstacle I missed or just panicked. But now, piecing everything together, the terrifying truth emerged clearly. No dog or deer jumped into the road. Lawrence caused the accident on purpose. He wanted both of us to die, or at least have a severe accident to collect the massive life insurance policy we took out a month prior. Or he wanted to end the marriage in the most tragic way, so I would live in regret forever. Whatever his goal, I, who survived without serious injury, fell into his perfect psychological trap. The feeling of guilt made me a slave to his family, serving them like kings for 6 long years. I gripped the phone tightly, my knuckles turning white. My voice became steadier than before. Mom, don't worry. I'll be back soon this time. I'll cure him completely. I won't let him suffer anymore. I hung up the phone. In my mind, a cruel plan of revenge had formed. After 3 days of the fake business trip, I drove home. The heavy iron gate opened. Martha ran to meet me. Her face was happy, but her eyes still hinted at worry. I entered carrying the suitcase, trying to show the most disheveled and tired appearance. I went up to the room on the second floor. The smell of antiseptic and citronella oil assaulted my nose again. But this time, I knew it was just the smell covering the rot inside. Lawrence was lying in bed again, the blanket covering his chest, eyes closed. His acting was truly Oscar-worthy. Dr. Claire was beside him holding a syringe to feed him through the feeding tube. When she saw me enter, she smiled warmly. You're back, Isabella. These past few days, Lawrence's blood pressure has been a bit high. Maybe he missed his wife. I had to stay all night to stabilize him. I suppressed the nausea that almost choked me. I threw my bag on a chair and ran to the bed, hugging Lawrence tightly. I buried my face in his chest where the imposter's heart beat calmly. And then I cried loudly. Honey, forgive me. I'm useless. I screamed with tears and snot staining his clean, patient clothes. I felt Lawrence's body stiffen slightly in shock, but he remained motionless. Dr. Claire quickly lowered the syringe and patted me on the back. Oh, Isabella, what's wrong? Calm down, you might scare Lawrence. I looked up with swollen eyes and looked at Dr. Claire, my voice trembling in desperation. Dr. Claire, the company went bankrupt. The Chicago project collapsed. They're demanding millions of dollars for breach of contract. I've lost everything. I'll have to sell the house, the car, sell everything to pay up. As I spoke, I secretly watched Lawrence's expression. When I mentioned the words sell the house, his eyelids twitched tightly, and his hand hidden under the blanket suddenly clenched. Doctor. Claire also turned pale, stammering. How did it get that bad, Isabella? And the money for Lawrence's treatment? I shook my head with an expression of unbelievable suffering. We might have to take him back to the family farm in the Midwest, Dr. Claire. Live in a simple house, use herbal remedies to survive. Where will we get the money to stay here? I'm sorry, honey. This is my fault. I rested my head on Lawrence's chest and continued crying. But the corners of my lips secretly smiled coldly. After dropping the shocking news of bankruptcy, I saw how the atmosphere in this luxurious house completely changed. The silence enveloping, it was no longer the silence of a sick house, but the tension of calculations boiling in everyone's mind. Doctor. Claire excused herself to go outside to make a call Shirley to inform her accomplices of my critical financial situation. Meanwhile, Lawrence still lay there, but his breathing was faster than usual. His chest rose and fell irregularly. I knew the monster was wounded and panicked, but he was still trying to remain motionless, waiting for an opportunity. At lunchtime, I told Martha to rest so I could prepare the oatmeal myself and feed my husband. I took a bowl of ground oatmeal, hot and steaming from the pressure cooker. The steam rose up. I deliberately didn't let it cool down like usual, and brought the boiling bowl into the room. Standing in front of the bed, I slowly stirred the oatmeal. The hot steam hit my face. I looked at Lawrence. His eyes were still closed, but I swore I saw his brows knit slightly when he felt the approaching heat. I sat in the chair, my voice hoarse and full of regret. Honey, eat some oatmeal. The family is struggling now. No money to buy imported milk or serums. Try to eat normally to stay strong and fight the illness. I'm useless. I can't take care of you properly. As I spoke, I took a spoonful of hot oatmeal without blowing on it and brought it to his mouth. I watched every muscle in his handsome face. When the hot spoon touched his lips, as a natural reflex of a living body, Lawrence's lips twitched. His tongue recoiled toward the back of his mouth. A small groan escaped his throat, and his forehead broke out in sweat. But immediately, the mind of a professional con artist overrode the biological reflex. He clenched his jaw, trying to swallow the scalding spoon of oatmeal. He didn't dare spit it out or scream. I saw the veins in his neck bulge. His face turned red in pain. I pretended to panic, quickly grabbing a tissue to wipe his mouth while profusely apologizing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so clumsy, honey. I burned you. My poor husband lying there unable to speak. You have to endure even the pain. While wiping him, I tightly squeezed the burn on his lips. Inside, I laughed coldly. Good job, honey. If you can endure this pain, surely you can endure the pain of prison bars. I continued to give him a few more spoonfuls. This time, I blew on it a little, but it was still hot enough to scald his throat. Lawrence still obediently swallowed. Physiological tears welled up from the corners of his eyes due to the heat and pain. I wiped his tears with my finger and whispered in his ear, "You're crying because you pity me for working so hard, right? I know you love me the most. I promise, even if I have to sell a kidney, I'll take care of you." I felt Lawrence's whole body tremble violently under the thin blanket. It wasn't trembling from emotion, but from fear and anger. The meal ended like a session of mental and physical torture. I cleared the dishes, looking at my husband's swollen and red lips without a shred of pity. Over these 6 years, my heart had hardened because of his coldness and lies. What he was suffering now wasn't even a quarter of the pain I had to endure. I left the room, closed the door, and left him there, savoring his pain and massive confusion about the dark future I had just painted for him. That afternoon, I locked myself in the office, telling Martha and Dr. Claire that I needed to urgently handle debt documents. In reality, I was executing the most important step of my revenge plan, securing my assets and setting up a death trap. As the administrator of the company with access to all joint accounts, I started operating on the computer at lightning speed. I sold all the shares I owned. Even though the price was low, I sold them anyway. The goal was to convert everything to cash as soon as possible. The money raised, along with my secret personal savings, was transferred to various accounts in my mother's name and relatives in the Midwest. Under the guise of paying off land debts, in just 3 hours, I became a penniless person on paper, transforming from a wealthy woman with massive assets. The feeling of seeing the numbers disappear from my accounts didn't bring regret. Instead, I felt a huge relief, like a thorn had been pulled out. Money can be recovered, but freedom and justice must be fought for by oneself. The next step was the fake $3 million loan. I contacted an old friend now working in underground finance and asked him to prepare a fake but authentic-looking loan file. In this file, the company where Lawrence was CEO even while comatose. I kept his position for luck, borrowed $5 million USD from a predatory lending organization with insanely high interest rates. The collateral was this luxurious house, all medical equipment, and the company's intellectual property rights. I printed the file, stamped it with the company's bright red seal, and signed the guarantor section. Looking at the stack of documents on the table, I smiled with satisfaction. This would be the surprise gift I prepared for Lawrence and Dr. Claire for their celebration. When they thought they had grabbed my wealth, I wanted to turn Lawrence into the king of debt chased by the mob from a wealthy scammer to a target to see if his little mistress acting as a caregiver would stay by his side or not. When I finished everything, I leaned back in the chair, exhausted. The afternoon sun shone through the curtains, illuminating our wedding picture hanging on the wall. In the photo, Lawrence was smiling broadly, his hand hugging my waist with affection. That day, I thought I was the happiest woman in the world. I didn't think I was just a fatted sheep waiting for the day of sacrifice. I stood up, took down the photo, and threw it on the floor. The sound of the frame's glass shattering was deafening, but also brought immense satisfaction. I walked out of the office, my face once again wearing the mask of worry and sadness. I carried the stack of fake loan documents downstairs and deliberately left them open on the dining table. I wanted Dr. Claire to see this, so the information would reach Lawrence's ears as soon as possible. In the following days, the atmosphere in the house became even more tense. Dr. Claire could no longer maintain her professional calm. She frequently went to a corner of the garden to talk on the phone, always frowning and worried. I noticed, especially, that Dr. Claire's clothing started to change. She left tight clothes for loose ones. Her white doctor's coat was always buttoned to the top. But no matter how much she hid her heavy gait and bulging belly behind fabric, she couldn't fool me. This morning, I saw Dr. Claire sitting at the dining table, stroking her stomach with a tired grimace. I pretended to be worried, approached, and asked, "Why do you look so pale these past few days, Dr. Claire? You look like you've gained weight too. Is it from overwork?" Dr. Claire was startled, quickly removing her hand from her stomach and forcing a smile. "It's nothing, Isabella. Maybe just indigestion from irregular eating and sleeping. Also, lately, I've been eating well to have the strength to take care of Lawrence." I nodded, my eyes still focused on her waist. Yes. Eat well. I noticed your skin is smoother these past few days. You look healthier. Maybe there's good news?" Dr. Claire turned pale, shaking her head stammeringly. What are you saying, Isabella? I don't even have a boyfriend. Good news? With whom? I just gained a little weight. I laughed inside. No boyfriend, but someone else's husband, and soon to give birth to someone else's child in someone else's house. I went to the kitchen and took a can of high-quality foie gras, a delicacy I used to buy for Lawrence. It was a very expensive canned good. 100 grams cost a fortune. I brought the can to Dr. Claire and said gently, "That's enough, Dr. Claire. You've sacrificed a lot for my husband. Now, my family is going through a hard time. I don't have money to pay you a decent salary. This can of foie gras is a quality product. My gift for you to take care of yourself. Consider it a small token of gratitude for my family." Dr. Claire's eyes sparkled when she saw the can. Coming from a modest background and being greedy, she couldn't resist expensive items. She rushed to thank me. "Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much, Isabella. You're so good. Even in these hard times, you still think of me." She didn't know that before giving it to her, I used a hair dryer to carefully remove the expiration date label and replace it with a fake one with a new date. In reality, that canned good had been expired for a year. I forgot it in a corner of the pantry. I watched Dr. Claire hugging the can like a treasure. Inside, I thought, eat it. Eat a lot to see if the fetus in your womb can digest my kindness. I wasn't a bad person who wanted to hurt an unborn child. But for its mother, who cruelly stole my husband and money, a little stomachache and diarrhea was just a light lesson. I wanted to lull them into a false sense of security, to make them believe I was still the old, stupid, and gullible woman so that my final punch would be the most devastating. My plan was entering its climax, and I knew this house was about to become a violent battlefield. I didn't want innocent people involved, especially Martha. She was the only person in this house who was honest and simple with me. For 6 years, without her help managing the house, I would have collapsed long ago. She knew nothing of Lawrence and Dr. Claire's show. She continued cleaning and changing Lawrence's fake diaper diligently, unaware that her boss had just come from using the bathroom in the other house before she entered. That night, after dinner, I called Martha into the living room and placed a thick envelope in her hand. Martha looked at me with wonder. "What is this, ma'am? You already gave me my salary for this month." I held her rough, calloused hands. My voice cracked. "Martha, this isn't salary. It's a gift for you. Consider it a Christmas bonus in advance." Martha tried to return it, but Christmas is months away. Why give it now? Besides, I heard the house is in trouble and has a lot of debt. It doesn't feel right to accept this money. Keep it for your expenses. Her honesty choked me up. In the midst of a society full of deception, there were still people poor in material things but rich in love like her. I pushed the envelope back emphatically, lying continuously. "Please accept it. I'll be happy if you do. I'll handle the debts. Ah, and I noticed lately you've been complaining of back pain, probably from overwork. Next week, I'm giving you a week's vacation to go back to the Midwest and visit your kids and grandkids. I already bought your bus ticket. You leave tomorrow morning." Martha was shocked. "Going home? And who will handle the food? Who will take care of Mr. Lawrence? Dr. Claire is busy, and you work all day. How can I leave?" I calmed her down. "Don't worry. Next week, I'll work from home. I can handle everything. Rest so you can recover your strength. Surely your family misses you. Go, and when everything is settled, I'll call you to come back." I had to insist hard for her to accept. When I saw her with teary eyes due to emotion, packing some old clothes in a bag, my heart ached. I wanted her to leave here, far from the coming storm. I didn't want her to witness the arrival of debt collectors or the police entering to arrest someone. She was too kind to endure such chaos. The next day, I accompanied Martha to the door. When I saw her disappear around the corner in an Uber, I breathed a sigh of relief. A thorn had been pulled out. Now, in this spacious and luxurious house, only I and my 2 enemies remained. Just 2 days after Martha left, the atmosphere in the house became so heavy it felt like it could be cut with a knife. Without her careful hands, all the work fell on my shoulders. I pretended to be busy, leaving early and coming home late at night to handle the paperwork for selling the company and paying debts. So, I left all the care of Lawrence to Dr. Claire. In reality, I sat in a coffee shop at the end of the street, watching on the camera how Dr. Claire handled Mr. Lawrence. With no money to buy supplements, I started buying the cheapest generic drugs, huge, bitter pills. Lawrence's food also became simpler. From high-quality seafood, chowder, and lobster bisque, it became plain oatmeal with cheap ground meat, sometimes so diluted it was just water. I also gave an order to Dr. Claire. Dr. Claire, the house has no money now. Please, reduce the medications. The brain supplements from France and America are too expensive. Let's replace them with local herbal supplements. Besides, he's been bedridden for 6 years. Even if you gave him God's medicine, he wouldn't wake up. When I saw Dr. Claire frowning, holding the local drugs, I knew she felt extremely sorry for her lover. But she didn't dare complain for fear of being exposed. Meanwhile, Lawrence, lying in bed swallowing bitter pills, was surely screaming inside. The money had run out, which meant the lavish life in the townhouse next door had also stopped. The climax came on the 15th of the month, the day I used to pay Dr. Claire's salary. She circled me all evening. Finally, in a weak voice, she opened her mouth. Isabella, it's payday today. How about it? I stopped peeling fruit, looked up, and gazed at her with an expression full of regret. Oh my God, I forgot. It's so complicated, Dr. Claire. The company accounts are all frozen due to an IRS audit. I don't have any cash right now. Please, understand me, and let me owe you the salary for this month first. As soon as I sell the house, I'll pay you principal plus interest. Dr. Claire's face changed. Her lips trembled. She didn't just need the salary to live, but also to pay the mortgage on the townhouse next door. She looked at Lawrence lying in bed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lawrence frown tightly. Without money, how would they survive? What would the child in Dr. Claire's womb eat? The financial crisis was really knocking on the couple's door. The lack of money made them lose their patience and sanity. As I expected, Lawrence and Dr. Claire started to panic. They couldn't wait for me to sell the house and pay the debt so they could get their share. They knew that with a $5 million debt, even if the whole house was sold, it wouldn't be enough to pay the interest. They needed fresh, fast cash. And so that evening, while I was sitting in the living room pretending to look at the stack of debt documents, Dr. Claire brought me a glass of orange juice. Her voice was sweet and thoughtful. Isabella, drink a little so you don't get tired. You look so worried. I'm also troubled by such a huge debt problem. What if we consider selling some assets, Isabella? I took a deep breath. Yes, I'm also trying to sell this house. In today's economy, there are few buyers and many bargain hunters. If we sell this house, where will we live? Where will we put Lawrence? Dr. Claire sat next to me and whispered, I remember you still have lands in a development near the airport. Now, land prices there are skyrocketing. If you sell that, you'll surely get a lot. Enough to temporarily cover the debt and have some left for Lawrence's medical expenses. I pretended to be surprised. Ah, right, I forgot those lands. They should be worth a few million now. But the problem is, all the titles are in Lawrence's name. Now he's bedridden, unconscious. How can he sign to sell? The process is so complicated. We have to go to court to declare him legally incapacitated, then a public announcement. It's such a long process. Meanwhile, the collectors hold a knife to my neck. Dr. Claire's eyes shone like car headlights. She hurriedly said, Isabella, don't worry. I know a very good lawyer, a specialist in difficult cases like this. He says there's a way to do the thumbprint process at home. Fast and practical, just need witnesses. The important thing is to save the situation. I looked first at her eager face and laughed inside. This woman is too eager. It wasn't a waste that I prepared the feast and invited her to eat. I pretended to hesitate, thought for a long time, and then nodded. Okay, I suppose there's no other way. Call that lawyer immediately. Do it as soon as possible. I'm tired too. I want to solve this so I can focus on taking care of Lawrence. Dr. Claire. Dr. Claire, overjoyed as if she found gold, ran out to make a call. I watched her back and smiled. 2 days later, Dr. Claire brought a man in an impeccable suit to the house. Introduced as a lawyer, an expert in resolving complicated property disputes. When I saw the clean appearance and sharp eyes of the man, I immediately knew he was one of Dr. Claire's accomplices. What real lawyer would work in such a fast and unusual way? But I still welcomed him warmly, made him a drink, and treated him like a guest of honor. The lawyer took out a thick folder and placed it on the table, speaking loudly. Hello, Isabella. As Dr. Claire and I discussed, I prepared the documents for a full power of attorney over Lawrence's assets in favor of Dr. Claire to manage and use for his treatment expenses. Since Lawrence is comatose, we will use the thumbprint process. I've arranged everything. You just need to sign as a witness and it's done. Why is the power of attorney to Dr. Claire and not me? The reason they gave was very plausible. Isabella, right now, you are a major debtor. If the assets are transferred to your name, creditors will seize them immediately. Dr. Claire is a third party. Besides, as she directly cares for him, putting it in her name is safest. An armed robbery disguised as an act of kindness. I took the folder, pretending to read every page carefully, my hands shaking as if moved. While Dr. Claire and the lawyer looked at each other with satisfaction, I secretly swapped the most important page inserted in the middle of the folder. I had prepared this page in advance with the same format and font, but with completely different content. It wasn't a power of attorney, but a confession of debt and transfer of company shares. Here, Lawrence acknowledged that the $5 million company debt was under his management for personal purposes, and now he transferred all remaining assets to cover the losses. I placed the folder in front of Lawrence and took a red ink pad. Dr. Claire quickly grabbed Lawrence's hand, pressed his thumb into the ink, and then firmly stamped it onto the paper. Lawrence lay motionless with his eyes closed, but I knew he was more awake than ever, executing the fraud of the century. After Lawrence stamped his thumbprint, I signed in the witness section and returned it to the lawyer. He took the paper, glanced at it quickly, and placed it directly into his briefcase. He didn't notice he was holding only the death sentence of their conspiracy. The whole fake legal process was over. Lawrence and Dr. Claire were convinced they now had power over assets worth millions and would soon kick me to the curb. That night, I saw Dr. Claire buy wine and snacks to bring to the other house surely to celebrate their victory. Meanwhile, I was in my room, checking my watch. 12 midnight. A few days before, I had secretly bought a small stage smoke machine and hidden it in a corner of the storage room. Tonight, I knew Lawrence had slipped away to Dr. Claire's house to celebrate. I slowly went downstairs and turned on the device. Within minutes, thick white smoke began to emerge, seeping through the door cracks and enveloping the first floor. The smell of smoke from some old papers I deliberately burned quickly spread throughout the house. I ran to the second-floor balcony, took a deep breath, and screamed hysterically. Fire! Fire! Help! Help! My husband! Neighbors! My deafening scream echoed in the quiet night, waking the entire subdivision. Lights in neighboring houses turned on. Dogs barked loudly. Running footsteps were heard. I triggered the building's fire alarm system. The siren wailed deafeningly, tearing through the night. I ran to the patio, opened the iron gate wide with messy hair, face dirty with soot, and crying while pointing to the second floor. My husband Lawrence is still upstairs. Please, save him. He's paralyzed. He can't run. Several young neighbors, some with fire extinguishers, others with crowbars, ran up the stairs. They were kind and zealous people who always pitied my situation. A young wife with an invalid husband. The sound of rushing footsteps and shouting echoed through the house. I ran behind them, secretly observing. There was a lot of smoke, but mostly fake from the smoke machine. It wasn't suffocating, but enough to blur vision and create the necessary panic. Break the door. Quick. Break it, a neighbor yelled. The heavy mahogany door was kicked hard and flew open, hitting the wall with a loud bang. Light from cell phone flashlights beamed into the dark room. I held my breath with a pounding heart, waiting for the moment the curtain opened. And then, everyone froze. A sudden silence enveloped the scene, overcoming the sound of the alarm siren that continued to wail. On the familiar medical bed, the blanket and pillows were messy, but no one was lying there. The ventilator was still humming, but the breathing tube was lying on the floor. Where's he, Mrs. Isabella? You said your husband was here, a neighbor said, turning to me with surprise and suspicion. I walked unsteadily to the bed, touching the still warm spot where he had lain, and then put my hands on my head, screaming in pain. Oh God, where's Lawrence? Where did he go? Oh no, maybe a burglar kidnapped him. I collapsed on the floor, crying and screaming. Everyone gathered around to help me up, completely confused. A person completely paralyzed, with muscle atrophy for 6 years. How could he vanish on his own in an instant? The noise and thick smoke from my house had spread to neighboring houses, especially the townhouse next door, the secret love nest of Lawrence and Dr. Claire. Perhaps out of fear that the fire would spread, out of curiosity, or simply shock at the sound of the siren, The garage door of the adjacent house slowly rose. From inside, two people hurriedly ran out onto the patio. Exactly at that moment, the fire truck arrived. The truck's powerful spotlight beamed into the night, directly illuminating the two protagonists standing there. Confused, in the middle of the patio, the atmosphere seemed to freeze. For a moment, everyone, me, the neighbors, and the firefighters focused our gaze on the beam of light. Standing there, healthy and strong, was Lawrence. He wasn't lying in bed with tubes everywhere, but standing upright, wearing silk pajamas identical to the plum-colored Dr. Claire wore. His hand was still around Dr. Claire's waist to protect her. His handsome face under the blinding light showed a clear expression of surprise and intense fear. He stared, wide-eyed, looking at the people looking at him, the paralyzed man. "But that's Mr. Lawrence," exclaimed a female neighbor, her voice trembling as if seeing a ghost. "They said he was paralyzed. Why is he walking like that?" Whispers started to spread like a swarm of bees. Lawrence seemed to wake up from a dream, quickly letting go of Dr. Claire's hand. His legs buckled, trying to pretend to fall to resume his role as an invalid. But it was too late. Dozens of pairs of focused eyes, recording, had caught the moment he stood like a normal person. I wiped my dry tears. My face changed from suffering to a terrifying coldness. I slowly walked toward them. People automatically stepped aside to let me pass. Lawrence looked up and looked at me, stammering. "Honey, I can explain." A loud slap landed on Dr. Claire's face, knocking her down, almost causing her to fall. I turned to Lawrence, my voice a growl between my teeth. "Stand up straight. Stop acting. How long will you fool me? And the whole world?" My slap was like a pitcher of cold water for Dr. Claire, who held her cheek with eyes full of tears. She quickly hid behind Lawrence. Meanwhile, Lawrence, knowing he could no longer pretend, stood up with difficulty, but still trying to maintain a weak and unsteady gait. He looked around, saw neighbors pointing and recording, and hurriedly defended himself, his voice still shaking from shock. "This is a misunderstanding. I sleepwalked. No, it's a survival reflex." "Yes, a survival reflex." He swallowed hard, trying to create the most scientific excuse. "When I heard the fire alarm, smoke entered the room. I panicked in an emergency. The body instinctively wakes up to find an exit. I myself don't know how I got here." Dr. Claire beside him hurriedly added, "It's true, gentlemen. In medicine, it's called the specular reflex phenomenon." In a dangerous situation, Lawrence was overly stimulated. That's why he moved like that, even though usually he is very weak. I laughed, a bitter laugh full of sarcasm that echoed in the quiet night, giving everyone chills. Survival reflex. Specular reflexes. How beautiful. I approached and pointed directly at Lawrence's face. What kind of survival reflex is so smart that it knows how to run from the second floor of his own house, open a secret door, and enter the neighbor doctor's bedroom to hide? Lawrence turned pale. "Secret door? What nonsense are you saying?" I didn't answer him, but turned and shouted to everyone. "Gentlemen, please, go in and look. Inside the built-in wardrobe of my bedroom, there is a door connecting to Dr. Claire's house. They demolished the connecting wall. Who knows when to facilitate their meetings, making my house the stage for a scam." My accusation was like a bomb exploding in the middle of the crowd. Several curious young men ran up to the room to check. Not long after, shouts were heard from upstairs. "It's true. Behind the wardrobe, there's a passage connecting to the next house." "Oh God, it's unbelievable." Lawrence and Dr. Claire froze, their faces white as wax. Their clumsy and stupid explanations were now the laughingstock of everyone. All looks of sympathy turned into disgust and contempt. When the truth about the secret door was revealed, Lawrence knew he had no escape. He was about to rush at me to silence me or pretend to have a seizure to find a way out. But exactly at that moment, the siren of a police car was heard approaching from the end of the street. Actually, the moment I triggered the fire alarm, I had already called the police station to report that unknown suspects had entered my house, storing illegal items and conducting illegal activities. 2 police cars stopped in front. Officers quickly got out, asked people to disperse, and secured the scene. I ran to the commanding officer to report. "Officer, I am the owner of the house. I suspect these 2 people illegally entered my property and committed fraud to seize my assets. I request an administrative search of the adjacent house." Lawrence and Dr. Claire trembled violently. Dr. Claire tried to explain, but the police ordered her to be quiet, With the testimony of the Homeowners Association president, the police proceeded to search the supposedly abandoned townhouse. When the garage door fully opened, a comfortable and fully furnished residence was revealed. On the dining table, there was still a bottle of wine half empty, and the snacks I saw them buy that afternoon. In the bedroom, Lawrence's clothes, branded clothes, supposedly lost, were neatly hanging in the closet. And most importantly, in a small safe in a corner of the room whose password I had already given to the police because I secretly installed tracking software and recorded Dr. Claire opening it, a large amount of cash, foreign currency, and transfer documents from my company to offshore accounts were found. This was the money they embezzled from the company and the charity foundation all this time. Lawrence leaned against the wall, sweat dripping, soaking his expensive silk pajamas. The legs allegedly paralyzed were now shaking. No need to act anymore. He looked at me with a mix of hate and fear. Meanwhile, I stood among the neighbors, watching how they ransacked their sinful love nest, feeling huge satisfaction. The perfect facade of the comatose husband and dedicated doctor collapsed before the light of the law. From now on, they weren't talented actors, but simple suspects waiting for Judgment Day. Amidst the chaos, as police led Lawrence and Dr. Claire to the car, more neighbors gathered around them. Everyone was furious, seeing the inhumane show they witnessed. Insults didn't stop. Scammer. Poor wife raising a snake in her house. People like this should rot in jail. Dr. Claire, accustomed to a luxurious life and under Lawrence's protection, became the target of hundreds of mocking gazes and panicked. Struggling to avoid the cell phone lenses of neighbors live streaming, Dr. Claire tripped on a step and fell to the floor. Following a mother's instinct, instead of stretching her arms to protect herself, she tightly hugged her stomach, screaming hysterically, "Ouch! My baby! My stomach hurts." Her action and words were like pouring gasoline on fire. I crossed my arms, watching Dr. Claire moaning in pain on the floor. Her nightgown rode up, revealing a slightly bulging belly. I approached, leaned down, and looked directly at Lawrence's paralyzed face next to her, smiling with a mockery that induced chills. "Wow, Lawrence, you're amazing. 6 years bedridden with muscle atrophy, total paralysis, but your semen is still as strong as an Olympic athlete. Or maybe you're the reincarnation of Hercules who, with just a shrug of the shoulder, can impregnate someone." People were stunned. Mocking laughter and sarcastic comments started to appear. A female neighbor whispered, "Paralyzed? What paralyzed? Look at that woman's belly. Must be 5 months. Turns out during the day, he pretends to be dead and at night gets up for vigorous exercise. No wonder his body is so good." Those whispers were like needles pricking Lawrence's pride. His face turned red, then gray. He didn't dare look up. Not long after, an ambulance was called to take Dr. Claire for examination under police custody. The scene of the comatose husband in handcuffs and his pregnant mistress being taken away with loud sirens became the center of attention for the entire subdivision. That night, I watched the vehicles leave with absolutely no pity in my heart. That child was innocent, but it was born from the seed of sin and lies. And its mother experiencing her karma in front of the whole world was deserved justice. I went back into the house, looking at the mess, smoke, and dust. The large wedding picture in the living room had fallen in the chaos and shattered. I stepped on the pieces of glass, hearing the crunch under my feet, and felt my heart so light. The facade of this happy family was finally completely destroyed, exposing the naked and cruel truth. But a sharp and definite pain is better than living a lifetime in a sweet lie. At the police station, tension enveloped the interrogation room. Lawrence sat in front of the investigator, handcuffed to the chair. His expensive silk pajamas were soaked in sweat. He still continued to deny everything, claiming he had only been recovering his memory and ability to move for a few months thanks to Dr. Claire's devoted care, and that love was a natural thing, no serious crime, just a violation of monogamy. I was afraid my wife would be shocked, so I didn't announce my recovery. I planned to wait a little longer until I was completely stable, Lawrence defended, trying to save the little image left of him. Dr. Claire, in an adjacent room, after being given first aid by doctors and confirming the fetus was safe, gave a statement matching Lawrence's. She was blinded by love, and thus hid the truth that Lawrence had recovered. I sat in the waiting room, listening to someone briefly recounting their statements, and I couldn't help but laugh. Even in this situation, they were still acting, singing the touching song of true love. Calmly, I took a small black flash drive from my bag, the item I had with me these past few days. I placed it on the chief's desk. My voice was firm. "Officer, here is all the evidence I gathered. Not just videos recording them living as a normal couple for months, but also their conversations planning how to seize my assets." When the flash drive was connected to the computer, the large screen in the conference room lit up. The videos appeared clearly. Scenes of Lawrence walking freely in the house. Lawrence and Dr. Claire drinking wine to celebrate tricking me into signing a huge donation. Lawrence calling me a cash cow, an idiot whenever I left the house. And most importantly, the recording of Lawrence admitting to Dr. Claire about the accident years ago. That idiot. I deliberately swerved the wheel. But she didn't die. Instead, she suffered to support me. Well, I guess she's paying a debt from a past life. Lawrence was brought into the room to face the evidence. When he saw himself on the screen, laughing happily at his wife's suffering, Lawrence's face turned white as paper. He trembled, his lips moving but unable to speak. All his defenses about a miraculous recovery or true love vanished like bubbles. Before solid evidence, his double face was ripped off, exposing his true nature as a professional and cruel con artist. The investigator looked at Lawrence with emphasis. "Mr. Lawrence, with this evidence, you aren't just being investigated for fraud and misappropriation of funds, but there are also indications of a crime of attempted murder and violation of family duties. Do you have anything else to deny?" Lawrence buried his head in the table. His whole body shook violently. His silence was the clearest admission of guilt. The next day, news of this scandalous event spread very quickly. My mother-in-law, Dolores, who was in the Midwest, upon learning her son was arrested, rushed to the city and entered the police station like a tornado, crying and screaming, making a scene. "Oh God, my son is sick, bedridden. What did he do to get arrested? Release my son. This is slander." When she saw me sitting working with my lawyer in a corner, Dolores rushed to attack me. You set up your own husband. Evil woman, venomous snake. I need to kill you." Fortunately, the police quickly intervened and held her tight. Dolores struggled with eyes full of hate, not stopping her insults. I stood up, straightened my clothes, and looked at her with a mix of coldness and pity. I told my lawyer to give her a stack of photocopies. "Mrs. Dolores, calm down. Your son isn't being slandered. Not only is he completely healthy, but he also has the strength to impregnate a woman 5 months along. And this, read it carefully." Dolores snatched the stack of papers, her hands shaking as she flipped the pages. They were copies of the confession of debt that Lawrence and Dr. Claire stamped with their thumbprint days before, thinking it was a power of attorney, along with the notice from the bank about the embargo of all assets as collateral. I spoke slowly, word for word, to imprint it on her brain. "Your son and his beloved mistress signed a confession of a $5 million debt from the company. All their assets, including the luxurious house you're proud of, the lands in the Midwest where you live, and the family home you boast about, are now owned by creditors. I've filed for divorce, and the court accepted the papers this morning. Now, I have no relationship with this family full of debt." $5 million. Debt? Dolores stammered. Her face was pale as a corpse. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She came to demand justice, to teach her daughter-in-law a lesson, and instead received news like a lightning bolt on a clear day. All her life she nurtured greed, hoping her son would get rich so she could live luxuriously. Now her son was in jail, her wealth was gone, and she herself would become a beggar. The shock was too great for Dolores, who couldn't stand anymore. Her eyes closed, and she fainted on the floor of the police station. I looked at her, lying on the floor. My heart was unmoved. Karma spins. The endless greed of mother and son finally brought them to the cliff. I turned to an officer and said, "Excuse me, please call an ambulance for her. My business here is done. I'm leaving." I walked out of the police station, inhaling the air of freedom, leaving the tragedy of their family behind. Facing the threat of prison and a heavy sentence, the true love of Lawrence and Dr. Claire collapsed faster than a soap bubble. When they learned Lawrence signed a confession of a multi-million-dollar debt and the entire fortune was gone, Dr. Claire realized she had nothing left to fight for. She understood that if she continued to protect Lawrence, she would lose everything: her career, her dignity, and the future of the child she carried. The instinct of survival prevailed. It turned her from a sweet mistress into the coldest traitor. In the interrogation room, Dr. Claire's attitude changed 180 degrees. She cried ceaselessly, playing the role of a victim deceived and forced. She admitted to the police that Lawrence threatened her, forced her to participate in the show of his illness. She accused Lawrence of being the mastermind of everything, from creating the fake charity foundation to launder money to forging medical reports. I was just a doctor working for a salary. He threatened to kill my whole family if I didn't obey. I was too scared, so I had to participate. This child is also because he forced me. Dr. Claire cried, crocodile tears flowing. In the next room, Lawrence was shown the video of Dr. Claire's statement. He was stunned seeing the woman he once loved dearly throwing all the blame on him. Anger consumed him, and he lost control. He rushed at the screen, screaming like a madman. Liar. You're a snake. You told me to pretend to be sick to squeeze money out of Isabella. You told me to endure until she sold the lands. And now you want to wash your hands of it? In extreme anger, Lawrence admitted everything. He detailed every move of Dr. Claire to get revenge. He admitted Dr. Claire directly contacted the fake pharmaceutical companies to inflate prices, and that she owned the accounts receiving the illegal money. The two who once swore eternal loyalty, who slept hugging each other, were now ruthlessly attacking each other in the police station, exposing each other's darkest corners to lighten their own sentences. I watched it all through a monitor, feeling deep disgust. It turned out their supposed love was that shallow. When there was money, they were passionate lovers. In poverty, they were enemies. The show ended in total humiliation and destruction. Dr. Claire was stripped of her medical license forever and charged as a necessary cooperator. Meanwhile, Lawrence, as the mastermind, would undoubtedly receive the punishment deserving of his evil crimes. The media storm swept through the luxurious house and my company like a hurricane, sweeping away all the fake luxury Lawrence and Dr. Claire worked hard for. A week after filing the case, the court officially declared the company's bankruptcy. Since Lawrence was the legal representative and signed a confession of debt, thinking it was a power of attorney, all financial burdens fell on his shoulders. Sitting in my office, I watched through the window as bank employees and court agents listed every item in the townhouse next door. The expensive Italian sofas, the works of art, and the empty safe were now marked as assets to be executed judicially. With Dr. Claire detained, the house became quiet and cold. The door closed with yellow tape, crisscrossed like an ugly scar. But the most painful thing for Lawrence and Dr. Claire wasn't the loss of the house or car, but the traceless disappearance of the $10 million they stole from me over 6 years. In the investigation, the police discovered all the money had been transferred to an international cryptocurrency trading platform via a broker. Lawrence admitted he wanted to multiply the money quickly to prepare for a new life with Dr. Claire. So he followed the advice of a friend who was actually a person I hired to get him to invest in a crypto project. He thought he was a financial wolf, but he was just a sheep led to the slaughter. Exactly on the night he was arrested, the platform crashed. The owner disappeared, taking the $10 million into the void. I remember Lawrence's empty stare when his lawyer broke the news in jail. He growled like a wounded animal, banging his head against the wall. My money! The money for my sweat and tears. He called stolen and scam money sweat and tears. What irony. He didn't know his endless greed led him into the final financial trap I carefully prepared. Evil money doesn't last. Not only did they lose all the money, but their dignity was also trampled. Media and social media buzzed with the case of the comatose husband and mistress doctor. Images of Lawrence standing on the night of the fire, Dr. Claire pregnant, or the video of Lawrence insulting his wife became gossip in every coffee shop and diner. Lawrence's family in the Midwest didn't dare leave the house out of shame. Dolores, after having a minor heart attack at the police station, was actually bedridden now, experiencing exactly what I went through. The difference was, now no one would take care of her properly. I signed the final paper to hand over the assets to the bank and pay off the debt. The luxurious house would also be auctioned. I had no regrets. For me, it was no longer a home but a crime scene. A murder of the soul that lasted 6 years. I took a small suitcase with only a few clothes and personal items and walked out the heavy iron gate. Before Lawrence was transferred to serve his sentence, I decided to visit him in prison one last time, not because any feeling remained, but because I wanted to perfectly close this tragic novel. The visiting area was separated by thick glass. Lawrence sat on the other side with a shaved head, wearing a striped prisoner uniform. In just 1 month, he seemed to have aged 10 years. His eyes were sunken, cheeks hollow, skin gray. The elegant and charming appearance of a fake CEO or powerful lover was completely gone. Only the pathetic body of a sinner remained. When he saw me, Lawrence's eyes shone with faint hope. He picked up the phone, his voice begging and trembling. Isabella. Isabella, honey, help me drop the charges. Tell the police you forgive me. It's just an internal family matter. I know I was wrong. I swear, when I get out of jail, I'll be your slave to redeem my sins. It was Dr. Claire's idea, but I still love you. I picked up the phone and looked at him with a strange calm. No more anger or the crushing pain of before. Before me was just a stranger, a despicable man. I smiled slightly. Lawrence, even in this situation, you're still acting. Aren't you tired after 6 years? Lawrence was shocked, his eyes rolling. I'm not acting. I say this from the heart. Don't you remember how much we loved each other? I swore loyalty to you. Don't talk about the past. I cut in, my voice cold as ice. Do you remember our wedding anniversary? 6 years ago, the day of our fate on that mountain road. Lawrence's face changed. He stammered. Why mention that? It was an accident. I brought my face close to the glass, staring him in the eyes, and said slowly and clearly, it wasn't an accident. And you weren't the only one who saw the dog jump into the road. Actually, I saw it from afar. I knew what you were going to do when you unbuckled your seatbelt and leaned toward me. The turn of the steering wheel I made. I deliberately followed your wish. Lawrence froze, mouth open, eyes wide in fear. He looked at me as if seeing a monster. I continued, my voice still soft as if telling a story. I just wanted to test if the man I loved really wanted to kill me or not. And you didn't disappoint me. You were so cruel, Lawrence. You wanted both of us to die, or at least me, so you could get the insurance. But God sees everything. I only suffered minor injuries, while you received your immediate karma. Over these 6 years, I took care of you not because I was stupid, but because I wanted to see how long you could play the role of a comatose man. I was waiting for the day you yourself would remove your mask. And now, your wish has come true. Lawrence dropped the phone. His whole body shook violently. His face was pale as wax. He realized that for 6 years he thought he was the director, the mastermind of the operation. But in reality, he was just a pathetic puppet on the chessboard of fate. In a terrifying silence, I hung up the phone, stood up, and said goodbye to him. Enjoy your new role in prison. This time, there will be no audience. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard Lawrence's hysterical screams and the guards rushing in. But those sounds were quickly swallowed by silence when the heavy steel door closed behind me. As I exited the prison gate, the sky was high and blue. The first thing I did was call Martha. It rang a few times, and on the other line, I heard her familiar and simple voice. Hello, Mrs. Isabella. Are you okay? How are the debts? I'm in the Midwest, but I'm worried sick. Hearing her voice, I almost cried. While everyone turned their backs and deceived me, this woman not related by blood was always loyally worried about me. Martha, it's over, I said with a breaking voice. Everything is settled. I sold the house and paid all debts. Now I feel so light, but I don't have a big house anymore. I can only rent a small apartment. Do you want to live with me? On the other line, Martha was emotional. What are you saying, ma'am? Big house? Small house? What's the difference? The important thing is you're okay. I'm on my way now. I'll take the bus this afternoon. That afternoon, I picked Martha up at the station. We hugged emotionally amidst the noise. I took her to the new apartment I rented in a quiet, tree-lined residential area. The house was small, just 2 bedrooms, but warm and bright. No more antiseptic smell or cold medical machines. And most importantly, no more lies. With my personal investment, the money I managed to secure and invest before everything was exposed, I opened a small flower shop just downstairs from the building. It was my childhood dream I had to postpone for business and caring for my husband. Every day, Martha and I tended to flowers, preparing beautiful bouquets for customers. Martha was overjoyed. She said, "This life is happier than the big house." She felt peaceful. On stormy nights, I no longer woke up startled, worried if my husband was cold or suspicious of every strange sign. I slept soundly without nightmares. I realized happiness isn't about having great wealth or a perfect husband in others' eyes. Happiness is when night comes and you can sleep with your head held high, and the next morning wake up with a peaceful heart to welcome a new day. That dark past really closed like a long nightmare that, upon waking, leaves only a lesson on how expensive it is to trust the human heart. 3 years later, Oregon welcomed me with a fresh morning. A thin mist hugged the green hills. I moved here over a year ago, leaving the noisy city and sad memories. My small tea and flower shop is on a gentle slope where climbing roses bloom all year round. Not many people come, but all love tranquility. They come to enjoy tea, admire flowers, and sometimes find a moment of peace for themselves. Like me, my life now flows peacefully. I wake up early, prepare tea, bake cakes. In the afternoon, I walk quietly in the park. At night, I read a book by the fireplace. Martha is still with me. She got used to the climate here. Her skin is smooth, always smiling. Occasionally, I receive news from people in the past. Lawrence got out of prison early due to good conduct or his poor health. But now he is truly disabled. In prison, other inmates beat him, breaking one of his legs. Now he is crippled, selling tickets at a bus station. Dr. Claire, after leaving prison, vanished without a trace. There are rumors she went to the border to work as a prostitute, leaving her child in an orphanage. Hearing these stories, my heart remains unmoved. No joy or sadness. They sowed wind and now reap storms. Life is very fair. I forgave them not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Excuse me. A pot of lavender tea, please. Just a little sugar. A deep and warm voice cut through my thoughts. I looked up and saw a warm gaze, carefully observing me. He is a regular customer who comes to the shop every Saturday afternoon. He is an architect, a man with talented hands and a kind smile. He never asked me about my past or gave me compliments. He just comes, sits quietly, drinks his tea, and watches me work. Sometimes, he tells me funny things about the houses he designs. I smiled and gently placed the pot smelling of violets on his table. Here is your lavender tea. The flowers are very beautiful today. He looked me in the eyes and then at the flower garden outside the window. He said in a soft voice, "Beautiful flowers, fragrant tea, and the person serving it has a peaceful heart, right?" I was silent for a moment and then nodded, a bright smile blooming on my lips. Yes, my heart is peaceful. The wounds have become scars. Even if there are marks of time, they no longer hurt. Whenever the wind blows, I look at the blue sky outside, inhaling deeply the smell of grass and flowers. Life is still long and beautiful. I don't know what awaits me in the future, if I will open my heart again to a new love. But I know one thing for sure. I am alive, a life truly mine, free and peaceful. The mountain breeze blew, carrying the melodious sound of a wind chime. I returned to my counter, silently thanking the storms that passed, because they taught me to appreciate sunny and beautiful days like today. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe, activate notifications, like, and share to spread these meaningful messages. Every comment of yours is a huge inspiration for us. See you in the next stories.